Now that we understand how to define functions, let's talk about how to use them, how to invoke them. And we'll begin by defining that same add function that we were using in the last section. And we want to invoke this add function. Well, we do that by calling the name of the function and then passing in the appropriate parameters. So in this case, I've called the function add and I've passed in the parameters 1 and 2. When this function is invoked, it's going to receive 1 and 2 as A and B, add them together, and then return them. We're going to take that returned result, that returned value, and store it in this variable we've declared called sum. And then, of course, we go ahead and log it to the console. Now, what's interesting is that we're already familiar with invoking functions. For instance, look at this console.log statement. Here, we're simply invoking the log method of the console object. This is a function call. It's no different than what we're doing when we call add and pass in the parameters 1 and 2. The only difference is that the add function accepts 2 parameters and the log method accepts 1. And by the way, you'll notice that I'm calling the add function a function and I'm calling the log method a method. And the only reason for that is that the add function is a standalone function defined in our program and the log method is a function, but it's assigned, it's a property of an object. And so when a function is a property of an object, we refer to it as a method, an object method, and when it's standalone, we refer to it as a function. Let's go to the browser to see what this prints out. And we see that it accurately logs the number 3 to our console. In the last section, we talked about how we can define functions that don't actually return anything. In this section, let's take a look at how we might invoke and utilize this type of function. I've gone ahead and added the same function definition and variable declaration that I included in the last section. We have this variable called myVariable and this function definition that accepts a single parameter which we assign to that variable. I've also added 2 console.log invocations to log out the myVariable variable before calling the function, before invoking that function, and then after invoking the function and passing in a value of 10. Let's go to the browser to see what it logs to the console. Just as we'd expect, it first logs out the value we initialized to that variable, in this case 0. Then, when we invoke that method, it sets the value we passed in as a parameter to that variable. In this case, we passed in the value 10, so the variable now contains the number 10. And when it logs out, that's exactly what we see in the console.